of the tenure of job.com, and I've been subject to some criticism and ridicule because of it. So I'm like, yeah, well, there are lots of inefficiencies. It's like anything. There's lots of inefficiencies in anything. It's not just, prejudicially towards recruiters. Oh, you're all shit. That's not true. That's but it's just a case of, we know we could do it better. We could cost less. We could probably be more efficient, and that's my point. But sadly,
I am not. I don't pull any punches on that one at all. Recruiting is massively inefficient. It is solely based on human interaction, and there are so many companies that are. I just talked to 3 or 4 companies last week that were still tracking candidates on a spreadsheet. How do you do that? I mean, they had literally 3,000 candidates that they typically work with, and they just place them out on spreadsheets. They don't feel they need to automate. They're not doing any kind of video to attract new candidates into their candidate pool. They're not doing any text messaging, no chatbot. They don't even, they've got a crappy little website that was built in 1995 or whatever. So, hey, if you're making money, who am I to say it doesn't work?
Yeah, right? and that's the thing, because we're buying out staffing agencies at the moment. So we signed a term sheet with Garden State Security, which gives me an unlimited budget to go and buy staffing agencies. Awesome. So it was also, I bought 3 staffing agencies in September alone. Not massive, but about 30 million in revenue we acquired in September. We're going to acquire about 150 million between now and the beginning, so the end of Q1. We've got like a massive deal pipeline, but you go in there and these guys are very, very kind of, almost primitive on the way that they operate, but they're making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Millions. They're Ma and Pa shops making millions. And you're just like, well, fair play, you're never going to earn that in corporate America, like not really where you are qualified. So, you've you've changed yourself into millionaires from working like this. And it's like, you can't really knock it. It's impressive.
And I think they have a lot of these companies have a false sense of security because of the amount of revenue that they can generate from, but that's why recruiter turnover is so high, right? Is because you've got a 70 to 80% turnover rate in 90% of the recruiting firms out there. They don't last because a lot of the lion's share is being not fairly distributed to junior recruiters that, they honestly need the money just to survive, pay back their school loans and stuff like that. But hey, if you can make money doing it. All right, so let's go back into, we're recording again.
Okay.
I can edit out a lot of that first part if you want. But we went over the nope and yup little scenario. The first one was AI is still in its infancy and basically at the kindergarten level. Go ahead. You're allowed to elaborate now.
Well, I mean, you must be crazy, or anybody, not you specifically, but you must be crazy to think if we have managed to even scratch the surface of the breadth of what artificial intelligence could do, not just for recruitment, but for just the general, just the general markets and industry itself. We've only been toying with the sort of technology like that in our space for, where it started with like Boolean string search and stuff like that, which could be classed potentially as AI. And so some people were like, well, it's not. Well, artificial intelligence is about something that can do a task that a human would do intelligently, in the sense of it could repeat the task with accuracy. So creating a search and going through all different resumes and jobs through Boolean string search is effectively a task, and it's done by a piece of text. So in essence is AI. Everybody has this illusion that AI is like this living, breathing robot that can talk back to you, and that is not the case. Right. And but one day it probably will be, and that's what I mean.
AI to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but think of it this way: if you look at it in a recruiting sense, take a Boolean search, get the results, and then run an if-then statement on the results. And if it produced the results that you were looking for, then do this, run another Boolean search to narrow down your results even further. Or if it didn't produce the results, do another Boolean search right? It's the same thing that a human would do.
Yes.
Either expand, narrow down, contract the search results, so you have a viable candidate pool.
You've had a viable candidate pool, but instead you haven't had to read every resume.
Right. And instead of, let's say the top recruiter could do 50 or 100 Boolean searches in a day, let's say. It could do that in a microsecond.
In a microsecond, yeah, 100%. Do that in a microsecond. And so Going back to your question, or sorry, what you said, the statement, AI, we haven't even scratched the surface with where artificial intelligence is. And if you think, let's talk about the government, defense, even Google, they will have stuff that they're working on, which is just into the stratosphere of what us mere mortals know is probably currently going on.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's totally in its infancy. I tell you, here's a great indicator that it's in its infancy. We still operate platforms. All the major platforms are still operating with gender bias within their AI. Fact.
Yeah.
Fact.
Got to solve that.
Yeah, got to solve it. It's definitely there. And because it's there, you cannot say that this is a polished, finished product. It's a child. And like a child, we must educate it well.
Right. So one of the things that I equate this to is getting a driver's license, right? So over in the UK, when do you get your driver's license?
17.
All right. And you get your driver's permit?
So no, it's just a lot. Okay. So how it works is you get a provisional license, which is a little green one, and you're allowed to drive with either a teacher or someone who's over 21 years old with a license at any time. That's how you're allowed to. And then you pass your test, and then you get your license.
Okay.
So
license. You've got. How long did it take you to go from provisional to getting your license?
So not long. Just a bit of background, because I lived in a place which wasn't a particularly nice place called Luton. I'd driven cars prior to maybe when I should have been allowed to drive cars. So, and so I passed my test in 4 months.
Okay.
So from start.
But still, 4 months it took you from your provisional until you got your driver's license. You probably had.
That was quite quick in comparison to normal people. Yeah.
You probably had 40, 50, 100 hours behind the wheel, right? So, but it didn't really take you 4 months to get your license or learn how to drive.
Yeah,
no. I would say that it took you 16 or 17 years to learn what a stop sign shape was, to learn that red meant stop and green meant go.
True. Yeah,
and
very true.
So shapes, colors, all these different scenarios with objects running out in front of you. That's a deer, or that's a kid, or that's a ball. Keep going, right? You can run over the ball, right? AI is the same way.
Over the kid.
Yeah, don't run over the kid. You don't get points. Kids, grandmoms, bad idea, right? So the point was that AI is still in its infancy. It still needs to learn what objects are. It needs to contextualize all those things with shapes and colors and numbers. And, when they start talking to each other, that's when the amount of data is going to start growing exponentially. Now, here's the kicker. For me, I got my license at, I think it was like 15, and I was able to start driving at 16 and a half, something like that. My son just got his license. He started driving at 15 and a half, and he got his license. He just turned 16 and a half, right? So it took me 16 years. It took him 16 years. It took you 16 years. When AI gets it, done.
Oh, it's going to take it. Yeah, it's
right. Now you can train the next car in however long it takes to download the code.
Yeah, that's
half an hour, and then you just copy, and since it's all talking, it'll probably just update its code automatically through machine learning and feedback loops.
And this is, I think this is the kind of fear, the whole Skynet, scenario, like where artificial intelligence is going to be like learning. Yeah. And it would just be like, and it's gone from like what it took 10 years to learn, it's now learned in a millisecond. And that millisecond, what it learned there, it's now learned and it's just going to be like, whoa. And it could be out of control.
Yeah. No, Linda, I don't want to take you to the gym and then to the supermarket. Go do it yourself.
Yeah. Oh my God, John Connor. Like it's one of the things where, and AI is clearly a very, very embryonic stage at the moment. So, but it's
all right. So the next one was, once a task is learned by AI, it can't be unlearned without rewriting the code. This is a common misconception. It's a myth in AI. Tell me, what is that relearning process? Because obviously you just dumped a machine bias, let's say, or unconscious bias for the machine. You dumped a ton of data in there, and you trained it to do a certain way, and it did not produce the results that are providing the best benefit for us as humans, or the outcome that we're looking for. it's eliminating candidates that we really want to include into our system because they're either diversity, inclusion, military, whatever. How do you fix that AI problem without scrapping it like Amazon did?
Well, I mean, I was kind of shocked that Amazon scrapped it.
Yeah,
and
so
I'm
was
because
I.
I'm just like, I mean, they took 4 years on that project. I just went, forget it. And it's like, and there's probably deeper commercial reasons behind that potentially. But
For publicity reasons alone, right?
yes. So definitely. But I mean, AI is like a human being. It's like if a child makes a mistake or is acting in a way that is, not is incorrect, you don't put a bullet in them and say, right, get another child. You give them more information, you nurture them and nourish them with information, and they learn that it was wrong and that this is right. And AI can do that.
Bad behavior.
Yeah,
do it this way.
But
how much data do you need to reprogram? I mean, with a kid, you have to constantly tell a kid, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. With AI, do you have to do that also?
Yeah,
because it took you a while to train it to do it that way. Now you have to untrain it to do it that way.
So there is probably an element of knowledge lost potentially, because if you just like cut it and say, right, everything that's been learned up to this point, we're gonna have to put on ice. But it's, I mean, there's a couple of things. You have to be able to accurately measure the relative outcome that you need to see to make it correct, which is one of the toughest parts. Yeah. So that's what will be the biggest challenge for us, is not actually teaching the AI, but knowing that we've taught it well enough that it does deliver the results that we believe are accurate. And how do you test that? So
your best outcome might be completely different than my best outcome,
exactly,
which is completely different.
So there's a layer on a layer. But nonetheless, I can't actually answer you with any cut and dry statistics. Oh, it takes this many times to kind of reteach artificial intelligence to make it, correct its errors. But what I can tell you is it can be done. And one of the things we're doing right now, so I will share something with you. So we brought in Laurie Buscini, sort of head of data science, to retrain our AI to make sure that there's no gender bias in it. And we've made a commitment by 2021 that we will have a re-scripted AI that we can be confident is not biased, and that we can prove it with a test. And we want to use that test out in the market as well, because we're going to call other people out and go, hey, we found, based on what you're doing, that you're going to be biased, and we're just going to release it for free. We're not even going to make it a service. We just want to improve the industry. I've got nearly 4 daughters. I think it's crazy. Technology has not, it would potentially impede them if we don't do anything about it in the future. But we created a piece of script technology that's been analyzing Wikipedia, because it's all this information, all this data, and it's really, really interesting. Like if you type, so we can prove currently right now, and I'd love to demonstrate it to you another time, Jeff, that Wikipedia is gender bias. And by the way, it's been, I mean, you could presume that, but we can prove it. And we did a test the other day with a user utilizing our AI. We'd imported a massive subset of data from Wikipedia, and we typed in nurse, and it gave us like the degree of, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but how degreed it was towards feminine. And then we asked the AI to tell us, what do we believe is the masculine alternative to that name? And it came back doctor. Wow. From Wikipedia's data. I was like, oh, wow. Why doctor? You're telling me there's not female doctors? But based on what the AI had learned from reading Wikipedia, it had learned the bias written in the content on there to know that doctor was deemed masculine and nurse was deemed feminine, with a great degree of separation. I'd love to show you.
I think it's by having the ability to train the AI using artifacts like Wikipedia, or even the dictionary, or our natural language, it really shines a light on how gender bias our everyday conversation is. Just how we assume women do certain things and men do certain things, and how we're better or different. It's really interesting to see how that's evolving over the last couple of years.
And so it's how it's evolving, but then it's also, when you think then you've got all this information available to us constantly as human beings, and we learn and we read and we absorb, we are biased.
Yeah.
So if we're biased and we're the people writing the code for it, guess what? the kid that you created, the Frankenstein's monster, which is the AI, it will be biased too. You know, grow up. You know, grow up a child in a Trump household, and I'm pretty damn sure they'll vote Trump when they grow up. You know, it's that scenario. You know, and so yeah, it's but you know, we you know, we're working on this deeply with Laurie to kind of, you know, fix this and relearn the system. We should go back to what we're talking about here, how we reteach. And we think it's going to take us 18 months. We think it's going to take us 18 months to kind of rip up, you know, years and years of work in order to, not rip it up, because that's the wrong terminology, to re-educate the, you know, it's like I don't know, not like a reformed criminal, but like, let's say I was a bad kid. Let's say I was a teenager, I was bad at school, this, that, and the rest. And then I kind of went through like this whole process of, you know, changing my behavior, changing my outlook, changing the way I am. It'd probably take a few years. But then once I've done it, I'm a reformed character. It's kind of the same thing with AI. It will be a reformed, less bias, because there'll always be a tiny bit of bias because you just can't avoid it because it's just data parameters one way or the other. But you have to make sure as well during the machine learning process that it doesn't find that tiny bit of bias and then start going, oh, and then just follow that one. You've got to make sure that it stays consistent, which is another one of the challenges that we have at the moment.
Yeah, especially if you're injecting machine learning and it's got a feedback loop, and now you continually dump in male gender bias on that AI through the machine learning feedback loop, and eventually it'll revert back to its old ways of thinking.
It'll go back. You know, you put the child back in with the bad kids that you used to hang around with in the same environment, and then suddenly it's stealing cars again. You know, it's like, it's true, you know, you put the AI back in this sea of data that has the bias, and it'll be like, oh, okay, this is what it wants me to learn. And this is what I understand. This is my environment. I'm a product of the environment. My environment is my data, you know? So, but the problem is the environment we give it, even taking an environment like Wikipedia, has bias in it because of us human beings. You know, so you know, there's a lot of change to come for tech and ourselves, which we're seeing more than ever now. You know, so I mean, and this is actually a bit of a criticism of myself. I saw this post of the gender neutral Barbie dolls and stuff like that were released, and I was kind of a bit taken back by it at first. I was like, oh, why? You know, just, you know, the toys, this and this. But then I guess it kind of then reverted back to my whole argument of bias within AI and making sure things are fair within the workplace. I was like, well, I'm kind of pro that, but then I'm kind of against the Barbie dolls. But you're like, but then if you build the stereotypes from young, guess what happens? Bias. Like, you know, so it's like, and that's my own problem, you know. So, and that's the self-criticism.
We're always constantly evolving. I mean,
yeah, we are constantly. But that's the thing; it's the constant evolution.
And a lot of it has to do with however we think about it, whatever stigma we put on that. I remember my kid used to love playing dress up. Both my kids loved that, but I never stopped my son from, you know, putting on a tutu and dancing around like a ballerina. And then I never stopped my daughter dressing up like Superman or Batman either. They were little kids. It didn't matter to them, right? And it didn't matter to me. They were just playing and having fun. And that's the most important thing. Just teach your kid right, acceptance. So the next question was, some recruiters are going to lose their jobs because of advancements in technology. And what did you answer?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So, you know, how many, how fast, how bad is this going to get?
Well, I think, look, we're in a deeply fragmented market with nearly 20,000, I think, or maybe more staffing agencies in the US. You know, you've got big outfits, you know, from your Randstads to your Robert Halves, right through to your Ma and Pa shops. And I think there are always people that excel at their job. There are people that just get by. And there are those that are there because by default, because they needed to have a job, and this is an opportunity to, they're not passionate about people. They're not passionate about their occupation. They are, you know, because they're just not. And like any good shift in any market, those that don't excel, or not necessarily excel, but those that aren't, you know, willing to, you know, push the boat out or adapt or evolve with technology or utilize it will die. You know,
Yep.
if I'm a Mar and Par shop and you're a Mar and Par shop, but you've now embraced this AI technology, which makes your recruiters more efficient doing more placements, and you deliver better candidates, and now you steal my client, guess what? I go out of business.
Yeah.
That's just normal commerce. But the technology was the driver behind it. And my ability as the Mar and Par shop to embrace that technology was the catalyst that then put you out of business. And because you're not willing to change, you're not willing to use it, or you're not willing to bring yourself forward, you are now no longer in the recruitment industry because there's no place for you. Well, that's just been going on forever anyway. That's been going on in every industry. And I think that's
the recruiters that were really successful 10 years ago got really good at Boolean. They got really good at social.
Exactly.
If you're coming into the marketplace right now and you don't have a LinkedIn account or
forget it.
Know how to do a Boolean search, you're going to be at a major disadvantage. You cannot just rely on a post search and pray methodology. When I first started back in 1995, there was no social media. There were no job boards. Monster had not come onto the market yet. It wouldn't come on for another year or two. And even then, it didn't have any viable resumes for where I was recruiting in Silicon Valley. So you know what I had to learn? Smile and dial, baby. Pick up the phone, smile and dial. Doing 50 to 100 phone calls a day.
Exactly. And if you were phone shy, if you're a person that's phone shy, forget it.
Yeah.
And we kind of look at that as like, well, that's just normal. Well, no, a phone, which was a piece of technology at one point, has empowered you to reach hundreds of people every day without having to physically meet them, and you embraced it. If you don't embrace a phone, you're phone shy, you're fucked. Excuse my language, but you're screwed. So,
we're in after hours, sir. You're
That's fine. But yeah, you're screwed. So that and that's the same thing. It's the same as now. If you're not using technology to enhance your ability to work, to enhance your service, and somebody else is, guess what? You're going to lose to them, and you're going to lose in the market.
Yep.
End of.
And there's going to be the naysayers that say, no, it's built on relationships.
Yeah.
You're right. Recruiting is absolutely built on relationships. But a lot of those seemingly meaningless conversations that go back and forth, like not informing a candidate that they've been rejected for a position, 90% of candidates do not get rejection confirmations, right? 90%. If you can just have that AI, now you're able to build a stronger relationship than somebody that doesn't give one. And I can call them up again and say, sorry, you weren't qualified for that last position, but I've got another one.
Exactly.
Yep.
And also, we were talking about it earlier, relationships with Gen Zs, when they become completely prominent in the market, it's going to be a whole different ballgame. A whole different ballgame of a relationship with a Gen Z. A Gen Z's going to have a relationship with you through text, through WhatsApp. They don't even want to talk to you on the phone. They don't like phone calls. They want to talk to you over message.
And that's one reason why I decided to do a video and a podcast at the same time. I could have just done a podcast, right?
Yeah.
But I think that, adding that visual element adds a lot more
100%. 100%. I actually struggle to listen to just listen to a podcast. I actually like to I like watching them because I like watching the expressions. I loads of body language going on, loads of sincerity, insincerity, all sorts of things going on within the process. Like some of my favorite podcasts like Joe Rogan and I love Joe Rogan and like hot boxing, like Mike Tyson's one. I don't know if you've seen that. It's awesome. But they video it, and the just the whole animation through it is so much more engaging than just listening.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool because my video camera's here, but you're here on my monitor. But when I ask you a question where you have to think about it, I can see that you're searching, right? You're searching your brain.
Yeah, searching the library of my head.
Yeah,
right?
Going back. Where is it? I put it in this folder somewhere.
Found it.
And then, and you're formulating your thoughts. You miss that on podcasts, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So the same thing happens with text-based job descriptions and video. And I've been pushing this video button now for years and years that recruiters really need to start embracing video in their recruiting processes, not just in attracting candidates through video job ads, but throughout the entire. So video voicemail, video job ads, onboarding videos and talent community videos, all kinds of things, training videos, etc. because video allows you to tell and sell a story, just like we're doing here. So
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. And it's just engaging. And for Gen Z, again, it is the engaging. You know, they've dual screened. They've been raised on YouTube. You know, they consume more amount of video content than we could have ever dreamt of. You know, their whole lives are crafted by that. So the concept of, you know, a job description or description about a company, or the ability to sell themselves or be sold to about a company through video is like, it is the most natural thing to them ever. You know, that is the most natural thing for them to do. Like the natural thing would have been for your generation is for someone probably to pick up the phone to you and sell you on the phone. You know, then you go for the
hours and hours talking to girlfriends or friends on the phone back in high school and stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly. Now, Snapchat, FaceTime, everything's video. You know, so I think that's potentially why there's a lag in the recruitment industry, because it's always dictated and dominated by the leaders at the time. So the leaders at the time are used to text, resumes, you know, descriptions, and that's how they know success happens for them. So they kind of dictate it down the channel. But as, like, you know, millennials were very video, but then Gen Z 100%. As the next decade goes by and Gen Z start taking management roles, director roles, because they'll be like mid-30s and stuff like that, and they become like senior, they're going to be like, screw this old rubbish. You know, this is not how I engage. Right. This is not how you capture me. This is like losing an abacus during a maths test. You know, it's like, this is madness, you know, and they'll just be like, forget this. And you'll see this wave of change. And like, you know, you're obviously ahead of the curve, Jeff, in a sense of your perspective. For years you've been talking about it, but you're trying to future-proof what the industry needs. And it's coming in a massive, massive way. It's coming. And if you're not doing it.
Every year I find it accelerates, you know, I guess velocity is increasing every single year. Like before, it used to take technology 3, 4, 5 years to get any kind of critical mass or adoption, right? If you look at how long LinkedIn took, I was one of the first members on LinkedIn to hit 50,000 first level connection, or 30,000 first level connections, right? And it took me 18 months or so to do that.
Goodness.
If I were to open up a LinkedIn account, I could have 30,000 connections in like a matter of months if I wanted to, probably 90 days. It's not just things accelerate so much more quickly now than they ever did in the past. You know, it's
they do, and I think it's, you know, my wife, she is 10 years younger than I am, so she's a Gen Z. So my wife is actually a Gen Z. Yeah, she's 1995, which is like the beginning of Gen Z. And I actually use her as a kind of example of her behavior, because there actually is a stark difference between the way she behaves and I behave, which is actually kind of funny, because that 10-year gap, you know, I'm kind of like one of the sort of earlier millennials and she's like very beginning Gen Zs. And it's just, and I know everybody talks about it and they're probably sick to death of hearing about millennials and Gen Zs, but the reality is you can profile people based on their behavior, and video and that way that they've engaged through YouTube has bred a generation of people that only do video. Okay, fact. So Snapchat, so's FaceTime, and if you don't believe it, you're gonna fail.
And now TikTok.
And now TikTok,
you're not doing TikTok.
Yeah, and just, you know, and now TikTok. And like, you know, so if you're not embracing it, and some people may be like, oh well, you know, it will be here in the future. It's like, look, don't be a laggard. You know, be an early adopter. Be an early adopter and ride that beautiful curve. Invest into the future. You know,
my daughter's got a TikTok channel, and you know, monitor it very closely as far as what content, who's following her, and things like that. Fake name, et cetera, et cetera. But the amount of creativity that she puts into these videos, I'm like, you are so creative. She's crazy. Hilarious. Yeah. I mean, and she learned that. I wish she got it from me, but she got that from watching hundreds of hours of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You know, so
YouTube is basically her second father. You know, like.
Thanks.
Joking. But it's true. Like, all jokes aside, you know, that generation who will become in the next 5 years, super prominent within the employment space, and in the next 10 years, they will become the leaders. You know, they will genuinely become leaders, because I also believe that progression and seniority is now being achieved much younger because of technology. You know, you can now be in a much more senior position and a much more influential position from a much younger age because of your technology savvy and because of who you are. Whereas, you know, go back a generation, probably, you know, yours and maybe probably before, you know, it was all about the ladder,
Well, people excelled because they, you know, brought Boolean search.
Yep.
Recruiters got to become subject matter experts because they understood Boolean, right? People, entire careers were made off of LinkedIn and how well you were able to search and find candidates off of LinkedIn. Guess what? That same thing is happening right now with video.
Yep.
So,
yeah, 100%. No, I mean, you're preaching to the choir. So I'm with you.
all right. So any final last thoughts? Job.com, where are you guys going to be? What are you doing? Real quick, 30 seconds, spit it out.
Yeah, so, you know, we're aggressively growing, and we're actually buying out and rolling up staffing agencies. So any staffing agencies out there that are looking to sell or exit their business, please get in touch with me, because we'd love to buy you. We are, you know, drastically growing out our technology, AI, the whole blockchain. We're utilizing, you know, trustocracy and meritocracy scoring to verify candidates. And if anyone ever wants to geek out on that and talk to me, I'd love for you to talk to me. You can just connect with me.
Sounds like a future episode to me.
Yeah, definitely. We should talk about it, because we've got some very clever algorithms of how that will actually work. And yeah, you know, we're on a mission to create the future platforms of tomorrow for how people get hired, and we're deeply passionate about it. My goal and passion in life is to help people feed their families and pay their bills. I love doing that because I'm a family guy, and I know how hard it can be at times. So it's my duty to help that.
Good. Awesome, man.
Thanks,
Arran,
Jeff.
fantastic conversation, man. I could speak to you for like another 4 or 5 hours easily.
Me
You and
too,
I totally geek out on this recruiting HR stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a passion, isn't it? You're either passionate about. That's why you're successful in this industry if you're passionate about it, you know. Because and if you're not, then you're not. So
yeah,
cool.
You can flip the coin both ways, man. Yeah, you're the best, man. Thanks for joining me.
Cheers.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on the Speaker Agenda Show. Look up Arran Stewart on LinkedIn. I'll put some contact information for him in the bottom there for job.com. If you are an agency and looking to sell, he's looking to buy. So, you know, keep it on there. And we'll be back in touch, man. Keep in touch, because my next couple of guests are going to be absolutely mind-blowing. Not that this wasn't, but they're really going to be changing the conversation in recruiting. So thanks for sticking around, everybody. Make it a great day.